And welcome back to Mixed Media Live. This is our weekly live stream, weekly live show. We are here every Friday at 7 p.m. and what we do is we discuss all things art, pretty much. You know, mixed media. We come from different perspectives. I'm a filmmaker. Nathan's a gaming person and other stuff. And Ben's a music person. And we all talk about popular topics, contentious topics, philosophical topics, pretty much anything you can think of. So if you are interested in such things, I highly recommend you check our catalog. If you're in the car, we are a podcast, so you can listen to us audio only. Save that precious data while you're driving. And with that, I guess we'll introduce ourselves. So my name is Irving. I am a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella. You can check out my website at ariella.co. How about you, Nathan?
I'm Nathan. I'm a game designer, or game developer, I guess, and 3D modeler.
Yeah, and if you want to be part of the podcast, all you have to do is chat. So just hit us up in the chat. We're monitoring live. We want you to be part of the conversation as we talk about our different topics for the day. We have a lot of fun doing that. I love when people are really engaging with what we're talking about. We had some awesome people last time show up, and we had a genuinely good time. So hit us up in the comments if you want to add your 2 cents to anything. We'll totally address it. Also, to that side of the screen, there's a live whiteboard. So if you comment that you want whiteboard access, we will give it to you, and you can doodle on that thing while we're live on the stream. If you want to pass us notes that way, or if you just want to create your own digital art right now, we can drop you a link, a temporary link to that whiteboard, and you'll be able to draw live. Anything else? Did I miss anything, Nathan, before we start?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Cool. So it looks like your topic is up first, just from what the editor decided to load up. So you want to go first?
All right, sure. Well, that's quite the blown up Steam logo.
Yeah.
All right, so my topic is on the gaming industry and whether or not it's oversaturated with games. So yeah, let's get into it. So the generally perceived problem is that there are too many games in the market and there's not enough demand to keep up with the amount of games that there are. So for reference, let's see, in the last week, 193 games were released on Steam alone. Steam's quality control isn't very vigorous at all as compared to other stores, so this is a very extreme example. So for example, on a console, you can't just put a game on it like you can on Steam. It can cost about $1,000 to, you have to apply for the ability to do so. You have to apply for the SDK. You have to get a special console that lets you do development stuff and whatever, all that good stuff. So yeah, it can cost you about roughly $1,000. It's cheaper if it's your second time, or once you do it one time, it's cheaper because there's certain things you only pay for one time ever, then you're good. And they to make sure that your game isn't potato. So yeah, obviously, on consoles, there are going to be a lot less games because not everyone's going to shell out $1,000 to, push something that's maybe a small passion project, something like that. They don't expect to gain much traction. And the Epic Games Store has 471 games on it as of the beginning of this year, 2021, which means that in 2 weeks, Steam gets as many games as Epic Games Store has in total.
Wow.
And I guess you can sort of tell how crazy that is because I've used the Epic Games Store. I never feel like I'm running out of, there's a lack of content. I'm always like, oh, look at that, it's a new game on the front page I'd never seen before. It's kind of crazy. So I pulled a quote from the Epic Games. It says, in regards to their store, we are prioritizing developers who have flexibility in timing and willingness to work through the early phases of a store with us. We consider many other factors as well. So there is no set formula. So this is specifically referring to how they choose what games go on it. So it's not just any game, anybody who's willing to spend the money. They handpick every single game. Well, I guess you apply, and from there they pick what games they think should be let through. And that's why they only have 471 games on their platform. And it's been years since they started. For Steam, so the process to do it has changed over time. Currently, it'll probably change again. Currently, how it is, it's called Steam Direct. You pay a one-time fee. I don't know what it is currently. It used to be $100. I don't know if they changed it or not. And that essentially gives you access to Steamworks, which is something that I don't know, just lets you do stuff. So I know, lets you do Steam stuff. But essentially, you need you need to pay that $100 fee to put things on Steam. From there, all you have to do is submit it to Steam for a review, and they check, make sure it follows certain rules. For example, you can't make it so that the game is free, and then they once they download, they have to pay to like continue playing it. Right? That's not allowed. So they have to make sure. I have to make sure it's not malware, stuff like that. They do that kind of check, and they're done. So the barrier to entry is, as long as you make a game, essentially it's $100. So yeah, that's the generally perceived problem, and so the reason why it's a problem is because then it becomes hard to sell your games, right? You make the greatest game in the world, and no one may buy it because there's so many other options and fighting for your attention. So yeah, that's the argument we're going to talk about. So this is mostly a problem for like the indie dev space, right? Like obviously if this is a real thing, then AAA studios, it would affect them too, because people are be buying other games. They definitely have traction, right? They have big audiences that purchase their game anyway. It's more of a problem for new indie devs that are starting out, right? Who are trying to gain that audience, and it might be hard for them because people are just looking at other things. So how is it possible to compete as a low-budget indie dev? I think it's essentially, based on these numbers, impossible to compete at the same level as the other indie developers, right? You're making a similar game to them, or it doesn't be similar, rather similar in quality, I guess I should say. There's nothing that's going to differentiate you from the rest of the games, right? You're going to become one of the other 193 that were released that week, and it's not going to be a big deal, right? So what can you do to step up your level? Making a better game would work, right? That's one thing. But obviously, there are certain great games that just get lost into Steam, right? So it's definitely the good first step, right? You wanna beat out your competition in terms of quality, because out of those 193 games, how many of them are actually good, right? Probably not many, is my guess. And we'll get into that, why I think that later. I think the real solution here is better marketing, right? So this is the thing that your game can do for free that other games likely don't take advantage of, a lot of them, right? Obviously, I'm talking about other indie games, AAA games, of course, market, because they know it works. Indie game developers may not do such things. So a lot of people think that, put your game on Steam, Steam will put it on their front page, and people will buy it. You are not getting on the front page of Steam unless you advertise yourself first. Yeah, things are algorithmically done on the Steam front page, so it's not like someone, as far as I'm aware, handpicks what game goes on it. You can't pay to go on it, as far as I'm aware. So you have to actually do the advertising beforehand. If you get a bunch of people to add your game to their wish list, then it'll be front paged when it gets released. All right, so let's do a little case study, right? So I am subscribed to something, and I would recommend other game developers to subscribe to it, called the ICO Steam newsletter. It's ICO Steam newsletter. Right, you just look it up, and it's free. And all it does is every week, it shows you the games that were released, right? That's how I know the 193 games were released on Steam figure. Just lists them out, and it shows them in order of how many reviews they've gotten within that 1 week. So obviously games that are released later in the week, they're going to have a disadvantage in that. But you can get a general sense of how things are going, right? Sort of trends in games that are coming out and stuff like that. I can tell you a lot of simulated games coming out. That's for sure. I don't know if they're doing well necessarily, but people are making them. And I get why, because there are some simulator games that sort of took off recently, and I guess people were like, oh, I can do that too. So.
What is the one with a vibrant esport community? Is that like farming simulator or something like that? Or
esport community? I have no idea.
Yeah, there's a big sim. It's actually a larger community than I think. I think it's like either farming simulator or something like that.
Farming simulator is definitely large. It might be like one of the larger of the X simulator insert year here. One of that genre of game.
Yeah, I think it has an esports community.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know it was a thing, but it's Power Wash Simulator that recently took off. So yeah,
I didn't know that was a thing either.
Yeah, that's the recent simulator. The way I'm looking at this is, I went to this. So my purpose of going to this newsletter, it's great that it actually came in handy here that I was subscribed, because you can't just go to the website and like it won't show you the list. You have to actually subscribe to them, and they'll give it out to you every week, right? So if we didn't subscribe to it, we'll be able to have gotten the info for this episode. So it shows you the amount of reviews on it, but it orders it in the number of reviews, right? And we'll say that the number of reviews and the number of buys are going to be correlated in such a way that it's all in order in terms of buys. This might not be the actual truth, but close enough for this for the purpose of this. So, top game on the list is a game called hopefully I'm pronouncing this right, Naraka Blade Point. I don't know. 16,000 reviews in 1 week. That's pretty insane, right? And so, okay, what made this game successful, right? Out of the 193 games. Well, for one, it was published by a company called NetEase, which is a already known publisher, pretty large. They have lots of money. I most certainly did extensive marketing on this thing. In fact, the game was covered by CNBC before it even launched because it was published by NetEase, just for the fact that this is the publisher, right? This is the kind of publicity they have. And it's also covered by other large gaming news sources on release. So that just explains that. There was also, the next one on the list was Car Mechanic Simulator 2021. This had 3,000 reviews, so I already see we're really dipping in reviews here very fast. Published by a company called Playway SA. Now, they are a relatively not large publisher, I guess. They are actually, I would say they're established, right? They're not going anywhere, but they're not like humongous, right? But I think the more important thing in this scenario is that Car Mechanic Simulator is already a series. So Car Mechanic Simulator 2018 was the one prior. It was the first one. So this is 2021 is only the second one. And that had 35,000 reviews. So getting 3,000 reviews on the first week for the sequel is really not something that would be unexpected, right? So currently we have here is that, the ways to be successful, at least in your first week, are to either have a big publisher behind you, which makes a lot of sense because that means they believe in you and they have the resources and they're marketing for you. And as well, also if you had a successful first game, people are going to be like, oh, your second game is probably going to be pretty good too, right? Even if it's not, at least they'll try it out and see how it goes. And because it's a sequel, it's also covered by many large gaming news sources on release. Next one on the list is Metro Simulator. It has 600 reviews. Remember the last one had 3,000, so we're dipping down a lot faster again. It's a self-published game, so there's no publisher behind it. That can't be the reason for success. It's at least the studio is called Kish Mish Games. Now, on Steam, this is the first game they ever released. Obviously they could have released games in other places. I'm just going to assume the first game they were released, or at least they're new to it, at least what I would assume, right? Oh, sorry, no, I'm getting these companies confused. Now, these guys produce a lot of games. None of them are very popular. Many of them have mixed reviews on Steam. Many of them have negative reviews on Steam. Metro Simulator actually has positive reviews on Steam. And I got sort of fooled. I was like, okay, so maybe I'll look into this. What made it successful, right? Did they do a lot of marketing or something like that? As far as I know, no. So the thing is, I didn't see is that on the side of Steam. So ICO, I should have prefaced this by saying ICO's Steam newsletter. It'll tell you when the game is released, but it won't show you games that are released early access. Only games that are properly released. If a game goes into early access, from early access to a proper release date, it'll notify you of that, right? So it only tells you when games are officially released, right? Even if you can technically play it beforehand. So I saw that the game had actually been out since 2019.
Oh, wow.
In early access, and they just made it an actual officially released game.
Classic.
I mean, I think that can tell you about the quality of the company. If they finally got around to it, and if they had negative reviews on other games. In fact, from the past month, there were only 15 reviews. So, that's sort of...
Well, they learned from the world-class company of Mojang. They sold their was it just out of beta or was it still in beta when they sold it to Microsoft?
I actually watched a part of a video game developers club in my school. They had this thing where we watched together on a stream a little documentary about essentially the creation of Minecraft. I remember Notch was still there when it was released, I believe. I don't know if that was and then he was gone. You know what I'm saying? Like he just the deal was that he would be there until it was released, and then it's Minecraft, and then it's Microsoft's. But yes, it was certainly just brought it out of beta. I was like, all right, you can have it now. It didn't really work well for them. 600 views in 2 years, a little more based on the month. Yeah, okay. So then, after seeing this, I was like, oh, okay, I need to be mindful when I'm looking through this list that these games aren't like this, right? Where they're in early access for a really long time and then released a little bit later, right? It's sort of a inorganic way of showing that there's like a lot of reviews in a week, right? But it's not actually the case. So I didn't bother to go ahead and look at the first two games again It was like, nah, they're probably just successful because they're publishers, right? And the relevant news that was going around about them and stuff like that, and the fact that the car mechanic simulator had a predecessor, I think was enough to just say, yeah, that's why. So I just skipped to the next item on the list that was actually released within the week properly. And this game called Patron, and it was. Someone, I watched a YouTuber, and he said he didn't know how it's pronounced, but it was spelled like the word patron, so I don't know if like there's something in the game that make him think it's not like that. The company is not based in a native English-speaking country, I believe. So maybe that's why. Maybe it is. I'm just going to say patron because that's how it's spelled. 526 reviews. That's pretty good for a week. Self-published again by Overseer Games. This is their first game on Steam. This is the company that I was meant to be referring to before. And immediately I saw, I was like, okay, this is going to be the one I'm going to look into and, how they actually got successful. And it was pretty evident like from the start, right? The developers are just good at marketing. That's what I found. And also, obviously, I assume the game is good as well. So on the Steam page, so this is a feature they added a good while ago. It's new technically in the relative to the entire lifespan of Steam, but it's definitely not new in terms of like it wasn't like yesterday or a couple of weeks ago or whatever. A feature on Steam where they'll show people who are live streaming the game currently. You can live stream to Steam essentially, and on the store page of the game, it'll show that live stream, which is pretty cool actually. And the developer himself was streaming the game. I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's a great way, right? Like you open the Steam page, the store page, and you don't have to watch the trailer. You can watch the developer playing it himself while he's talking about the game and answering people's questions about the game, right? That's pretty smart.
Live active sales pitch.
Yeah, that's crazy. Instead of having to watch the static trailer and you have questions and you can't get your questions answered because they're not actually there you can talk to. So yeah, it's pretty smart, and I never thought about that. I'm definitely gonna steal that at some point. So the developer had 700 viewers watching him. Pretty nice. He wasn't just playing the game. He could have done that, and that would have been just an L, right? He actually talked about the game. He put it to use. So yeah, it's great. So I went to check their social media platforms to see what kind of marketing they were doing there. So it's very evident to see which platforms they're using a lot, heavily leaning into, and some of them are not so much, right? So Reddit, it's pretty lax for them, but Twitter is going pretty strong for them. On YouTube, they have the first thing I checked is YouTube. I'm gonna get to this later, but like YouTube is like probably the modern way to go about it. Advertising your game, and I'll get to that later. But I went on YouTube and I searched patron. It's a generic word, mind you. So like you can definitely get very different things. Obviously, YouTube does change the search results based on what you like viewing, right? I was using my normal account, so it should know I like gaming and whatever. So you're gonna skew it. But the first thing wasn't actually the game. First thing was I think some like song that came out like 6 hours ago from like a popular person. So understandable how that came up first. Second thing was actually Patron, the game. In fact, it was a stream. It was like it was the VOD stream that a YouTuber named Raptor had put out. Raptor is a pretty big streamer. He's a little less than 1 million subscribers, so that's pretty crazy for someone to stream your game of that size.
Yeah.
And immediately what I thought was, I wonder if they gave him the game for free, right? Like pretty smart move. So I watched the stream. I checked the description of the stream first to see if he's like disclaimer, I got this game for free, whatever. I didn't see anything there. I watched the first part of the stream. He didn't say he got it for free, but he said he got 30 keys to give away. And I was like, oh, that is very smart.
Yeah.
What better way? Like that's like a win-win for both the content creator and the developer, right? The content creator can draw people in by saying, I have 30 free keys to give away on a stream. Come here if you come watch the stream. You have to watch the stream. You don't know when I'm going to give it away, right? So you have to actually actively watch the stream. And it makes you happy because you're like, oh great, if you already watch them already, you're like, oh great, my streamer is has a chance of giving me a key. How generous of a guy, whatever, right? Great for the content creator. The only way that I can see you not doing that is if you actively dislike the game. If it's like garbage. But as I said before, this all hinges on you having a good game. That's like step one. So that was a pretty big brand move, and obviously it's a win for the developer because even though I guess he potentially lose out on 30 sales, he gets the audience of a 1 million subscriber YouTuber, which I think outweighs it significantly. And you've also potentially got people who are going to tell him, hey, please make more of this content in the future, right? And so what's going to happen is that's going to perpetuate and keep going and keep generating sales. It's worth noting that that wasn't the first time I played the game. So the streamer had found the game before, played it once. So I wonder if he ever intended to play a second time, or the 30 keys made him, play it the second time. Either way, devs saw him playing the game, and they were like, "Oh, you can help you there. Here's 30 keys," and that's pretty smart. It was actually there was Steam was doing a thing where they were showcasing a bunch of demos of games that were in alpha or beta or whatever, and they're all free, right? And so I guess so you sort of could give the developers some feedback, whatever. I guess I don't know, some Steam event, wherever they wanted to do it, right? That's actually how they did that, and that's how the YouTuber found them. So that's pretty smart, I guess. And from there, many other YouTubers onto it, right? Like once you get one big YouTuber like that onto it, there are going to be a ton of other people who are like, "Oh, I watched that guy. I'm also a YouTuber. Maybe this is going to start a trend. Maybe I just actually like the game, whatever for a reason," and they start making their own content based on the game. So yeah. Then I checked Reddit, and as I said before, there's not much on it. They have their own subreddit, but it's it's like the most upvoted thing is like 7 upvotes. It's like it's not a big deal. But they do have links to all their other social media there. So the Discord. I peeked in there for like a moment, and I was like, all right, it's probably nothing of interest here, that much interest. So I just left that. Checked their Twitter, and it's definitely a gold mine of stuff there. So they're doing what I would have done with Reddit, actually. And I guess I would have done with Reddit because I don't use Twitter. So I guess this actually makes a lot of sense with Twitter because it's like you don't need short messages, but you can also put videos, right? It's kind of weird, right? So you can have like the messages you can make out of text are extremely short, but if you just use videos instead, right? Then you're able to like dominate everyone else in terms of how many the meaning of what you're saying actually, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, on Twitter they had 247 tweets in the past 5 months. 5 months is a pretty good time for marketing, right? They seem to be marketing while developing the game, which is I think also smart, right? So as you make progress, it gives you something to say, right? So if you already finished the game, you don't really have much to say. You're not going to be able to generate 247 tweets off of just the final product, probably. So if you're able to be like, okay, oh, I gray boxed this level or whatever, that's one tweet. Hey, I added some like rudimentary assets to this level. All right, here's the process for making this asset, whatever, and it's going to compound. You might get dozens of tweets out of like just one concept or whatever, right? People like that sort of sense of progression, right? So I think the thing on like the meta on Reddit is to like say like, this is my first X, right? That's like sort of like something that'll generate a lot of votes.
For sure.
So we do stuff like accomplishments, right? And people might be like, "Oh, that's great. Let me support you or whatever," rather than just saying it's done, which is also a great accomplishment as well. But it's only one. It's only one accomplishment, and it might be technically the greatest of all accomplishments, but it doesn't mean that people are going to see it like that. If you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they gave progress updates like that, and they gave a pretty highly representative footage. One of the worst things I've ever seen in video games marketing is like when trailers are just bad, right? The trailer doesn't really show you what it is you're playing, right? So the way I think trailers should be, structured is in such a way that you want to have like the core mechanics shown off, right? And it needs to leave the person who's watching it like sort of imagining what's going to happen, right? So this is something that's kind of weird in a way. It's like, is this actually a good thing to do? As in, like, is it the right thing to do? It's like, are you misleading your audience necessarily? And sort of like keeping it vague. And, you're telling I guess not vague, that's not what I'm trying to say, is you show your viewers something, but people tend to think the game's going to be better than it actually is, right? So take Cyberpunk 2077, right? All you show is some footage, and people say, oh, like, I bet you'd be able to do this thing, and you'd be able to do this thing, and this thing, and this thing, or whatever. Obviously that's an extreme case for that game, and there are some promises that CD Projekt Red never made, but people were just like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if it'd be like this, whatever. Yep. Comparing it to games in a similar genre, and stuff like that, and being like, well, they can do that, and so this game should be able to do that, right?
It's a bit of mass hysteria.
Yeah. That's an extreme case, but I don't know. Let's take let's take Battlefield for example, right? The new Battlefield 2042 that's coming out, right? Like maybe saying, oh great, this is gonna be cool. I'm gonna be able to do these epic things. yes, there'll be epic moments, but those will not be the majority of your moments. Those are sort of like this is like the icing on top, right? It happens occasionally, it doesn't happen too much, and it's great when it happens. It's not
Yeah.
going to be all this like action-packed stuff all the time, but people might fill themselves with that kind of expectation because they're just sort of optimistic in a way, right? Letting their imagination run free. So, trailers that do that are good trailers. Whether it's the right thing to do, I don't know. I guess that's up for debate. But it's definitely bad when the trailer doesn't even like show you what's interesting at all. But yeah, my point here, anyways, was that on Twitter they were showing highly representative footage of what they were doing. Yeah, they showed like new aspects of the game and every single thing with their progress updates. Like, oh, look at the progress on the city building aspect part of it. Look at like the art here and stuff like that. That is a great way of sort of expanding content, but not in a way that you're, making nothing. If you get what I'm saying, right? You're not. It's not like those YouTube videos that are supposed to be 2 minutes, but they stretch it out to 10 minutes because that's the meta, right? Like it's like this actually makes sense for it to be this long. They just put more stuff in it, right? And that's great. So yeah, most releases on Steam will not do any of that. If you just subscribe to the ICO newsletter and you just look at the games and you just pick randomly, like, you're gonna see some really bad trailers. You're gonna look at the game. You're gonna find not a single social media post about it. Maybe one on like I don't know Reddit saying, "Hey, I made this game. Please buy it." And it's like that's not enough. You're gonna get like if your game is really cool, maybe you'll get a lot of posts, maybe you'll get a lot of attention, whatever. But if your game is even above average or whatever, some luck involved here too, right? So you can even have a good game and it just doesn't hit the algorithm correctly, right? This is why you have to keep doing it because you might not hit the algorithm correctly once, but if you just keep doing it over and over and over again, right? Eventually, it has to, as long as you're making your content correctly, as long as your game's good, it has to be successful at some point. It has to pick up speed, right? It's like the same thing with like YouTubers, right? YouTubers don't just get formed overnight, right? Like big YouTubers, right? PewDiePie didn't wake up one day and was like, oh, look at this, 1 million subscribers, right? Like he probably released a lot and a lot and a lot of videos before he even had like 100 subscribers, right? Or 200 or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can't expect to, win this sort of race if you just never like put in that kind of effort. It's gonna be hard, right, to pump out that kind of content consistently, especially while you're making the game, right? Obviously, if you can have someone else do it, like a marketing person, that'd be better. But we don't all have that kind of luxury. So it's gonna be hard, but it's something that you just have to do. You have to do it if you want to. It's not risk free. You can still have a game that flops. Your chances of flopping are significantly lower, right? You really have to get really lucky if your game's actually good and you actually marketed correctly. I don't know. Just some unforeseen consequences would have to happen there, and that'd be unfortunate. But yeah, it's definitely the way to maximize your luck on that one. All right, so in conclusion, this is just a case study. So obviously, it's not necessarily representative of everything. It's just like looking down the list and like. Clearly, there's like at least a pattern with the first two things. If not necessarily everything, that might indicate that there is a pattern with everything. If you want to know more about like marketing and stuff like that, there's so many GDC talks about marketing from various people, and make sure you just check the ones that you don't think are necessarily about marketing because sometimes they're not titled like maybe there's some marketing involved in the video, but they don't title it like this is how you market your game or whatever, right? Might be something a bit more ambiguous than that. So if you're not sure what the GDC talk is about, I'll just click it, scrub through, and be like, is he talking about marketing? So watch it.
I will say, if you need professional help, you can also contact me at ariella.co. I do a whole bunch of stuff. My favorite is branding in terms of if you want to brand your gaming company, hit me up. I can give you video ideas too. I can teach you content strategy as a small plug for my company, and I'll quit it now.
if that's a bit too daunting, you can just join our Discord server. We'll be happy to for free tell you, hey, some ideas. There's some ideas your way. Maybe we'll if you whenever you release your game, or whatever, we'll review it on stream like we've done before with other games. So yeah. But yeah, okay, plug over. So I was saying, this is just a case study. GDC talks. Yeah. There's one, the really great one. I can't remember what it's called. I can't remember the guy's name who does it, but it's I think the thumbnail is maybe an image from Slime Rancher because the guy who did the talk is one of the guys who worked for the company that made Slime Rancher. It's a really good talk. on it's not necessarily, it's not just marketing. It's a little bit more than that. It's more about, I would say, it's how to make your game live, right? So sort of the way of the old was to have it such that your game sort of skyrockets in popularity the first day or two it's out. 3 days, first week is like is essentially like most of the purchases you'll ever get, and then from there it just plummets, and so you essentially just expect to get all your revenue for the most part from that initial week, right? The way it is now, that's not a very good strategy anymore. This is another thing I guess I can talk about later time. I don't feel good about this necessarily, but I was leaning towards a more live service way where the game releases in an unfinished state and is sort of serviced upon continuously, and people buy it as they go on, as they feel like, oh, yeah, this game's now worth me buying, whatever. And they add, even if it's like, unfinished doesn't necessarily mean bad. It's just like they have features planned that are just not in it yet, which is okay, whatever. Sometimes they are, just bad games that are released and they're like, oh yeah, I'll make it better later. That's not good, in my opinion. But the live service nature of this makes it so that your first week is no longer as important. Of course, if your game, some games can't really be live service as well. Imagine a game like Portal 2, for example. I've thought about this so much that this example is so easy for me to just think of. Portal 2 wouldn't work very well, and it would have to change. It definitely had to change in a live service state, right? Because the story it's a story game, right? The story is set, right? As far as I'm aware, actually I'm wrong. Let's say as far as I'm aware, there's no live service story-driven game, but there is. The Walking Dead was a live service game. They kept adding on chapters as they kept going, which is interesting. So I guess, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It'd have to change, right? You could have made Portal 2 like that. Live service is somewhat less risky, which is, I guess, why it's so compelling for developers, even though they might have to do more work in the end, because they don't have to make a whole game necessarily, right? You can make that first chapter of the game and then see how people like it, and you can get feedback, and you can change how you make the next chapters as you go on to get better, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
And then, okay, I'll just have to be another. I don't want to keep talking about this. It'll be another another episode on the pros and cons of live service games.
Coming soon.
Yeah, might be the next one, honestly. Considering, yeah, maybe I'll make the next one. But yeah, as I was saying before, I got on this tangent. Just a case study, but you have to wonder how people, just finish a game jam, make a game in a week, in a month, or whatever, and they're like, all right, this is a pretty fun game, maybe it is. Decide, let me put it on Steam, right? Without doing any marketing or anything like that, right? That's gonna take up some of that 193 per week of just there was just some game jam that week or whatever, and someone was like, yeah, sure, I'll put it on Steam. I think that's or like a school project, whatever. It's just something like they finished the game for whatever reason, doesn't matter. I think people would enjoy this, right? Maybe I'll make some passive income out of it, right? How's it gonna hurt? It's $100, as long as it's $20, I sell for $20. As long as 5 people buy it, I break even, whatever. In actuality, they'll probably make 0 sales because it's literally how no one's gonna find it, right? You tell your friends, right? And assuming you didn't give them free Steam keys, then okay, maybe you'll recoup your money.
Right.
But that'd be a lot of the games there. And anything else? Even with outside of that audience, people who just made a game, put it on, people who even are doing better and trying to make money out of it and stuff like that. They may not realize that marketing is something that they have to do, right? Because when you're an indie developer, you have to wear a lot of hats, right? You may be a programmer specifically, or maybe you're a writer, whatever it is, you have to now be everything, right? And because you are likely not a marketer when coming into this, right, you may not understand that marketing is something that needs to be done, because how are you going to know if no one tells you, right? I mean, maybe you can logic it out on your own, right? But that's going to be a bit harder. Yeah, a lot of people definitely don't realize. And so if you even are looking up any marketing stuff, you're a step ahead of the game, right? And just make sure that you do your research, right? Not just you don't have to just market your game; you have to market your business as well, right? Have a good branding, stuff like that. Your brand essence or whatever it's called needs to be good. I think that's all I have. Yeah.
No, that was very insightful. I think I'll end up titling this something more like the beginnings of the beginning of marketing. I don't know, or marketing your indie game, 101 or something like that, because that was a good case study, of how to do it. Before we move on to the next one, I would just like to say that we want to go live on Rumble. Rumble's slowly adding live streaming for general users. They started off in beta with like their biggest accounts, of course, just to test it out and test out the load and all that kind of stuff. But they keep slowly expanding it to larger and larger bases of people. Now, the thing is, in its current phase, it is a sort of pay-to-play thing to have live streaming on Rumble. So, if you want to see us on Rumble, I know we have a large viewing on Rumble. A lot of people see our stuff on Rumble, and a lot of people are subscribing every day, and that's awesome. So, if you are on Rumble, or you're listening to this on Rumble, the best thing you can do for us is to support us so that we can get live streaming going on Rumble. So, you can go to locals.com. You can search Mixed Media there, or there's a link in the description to our locals page where you can support us for as low as $5 a month. In fact, if we just get one supporter, I will pay the difference for Rumble live streaming if we get one awesome supporter to back our efforts to get Rumble live streaming. If not, if you're on Rumble, you have to go to our YouTube. Nasty, I know. Gotta go to our YouTube or our Twitch, also kind of gross, to view us live. So if you want to see us live on Rumble, gotta support us, and we'd be much appreciative. I would thank you indefinitely. And the first however many people, I'm gonna say the first 5 people who join us on Rumble will get permanent as long as you're a good person. There you go. There it is. Whiteboard privileges. Yeah. So there's the plug. There's the shill.